eyes, said her boyfriend had suffered a heart attack on his yacht and been forced to drop her off at the nearest port since his wife was about to be helicoptered in with a doctor. In more collected tones, a tall German explained to everyone that he was a representative of the German Society for Protection Against Superstition, or Deutsche Gesellschaft Schutz vor Aberglauben. He wrote the name in tiny German script on a sheet of rolling paper for us to read, and had been sent to Mexico after a stint in Italy. An actress from Zacatecas no one had heard of insisted she was so famous that a theater, a planet, and a crater on Venus had been named after her. "And you," one of them would ask, noticing how intently I listened, "what brought you here?" "I had run away," I told them. "I'd run away from home." "Are your parents evil?" "No, not at all. I had run away with someone." "And where was this someone?" "Good question." "And who was this someone?" "An even better question." But that was only half the story. I had also come because of the dwarfs. However fantastical it now seemed, I was here with Tomás, a boy I hardly knew, in search of a troupe of Ukrainian dwarfs. I say boy, though he was 19 to my 17, and I say dwarfs, though I'd yet to see them with my own eyes. In any case, if I stopped to think about it for more than a few seconds, the situation was almost entirely my fault. Calming thoughts were hard to come by. No calm, only numbness, as if stuck halfway through a dream, yet the realization didn't trouble me. The palapa held out the promise of one thing, while the animated conversation and gaudy cocktails delivered another, and once I'd had enough, I would return to my hammock through the sifting black of the beach and watch shadows advance and recede, never certain as to who or what they were. Sometimes I would see Tomás walk past, his shadow easy to pluck out from the rest, and although he kept a certain distance, I recognized him instantly, tall and slender, with a jaunty gait, like a puppet of wood and cloth slipped over a giant hand. At some point, I would have to explain to myself and to any witnesses how it was that I'd ended up in Zipolite with him. He had started out as a snag in the composition. From one moment to the next, there was no other way of putting it, he had begun to appear in my life back in the city. And since all appearances are ultimately disturbances, this disturbance needed investigating. I didn't even particularly like him at first. Intrigued would be a better word. He was a sliver of black, slicing through the so-called calm of the morning. I still remember most details. The pinkish light that spread over the street, painting the tips of trees in the uppermost windows, the shops closed, as well as the curtains on houses, and the only person I'd encountered within this stillness was the elderly organ grinder in his khaki uniform, seated on the edge of the fountain, below the looming statue of David, polishing his barrel organ with a red rag, before heading to the central. Harmonipan Frati & Co., Schönhauser Allee 73, Berlin, read the gold letters down the side. But the organ grinder himself lived in La Romita, the poorer section of La Roma, though he always came to the plaza near my house to polish his instrument, preparing it for a social day outside the cathedral. None of his kind had ever been to Europe, but they carried Europe in their instrument, their uniform, and their nostalgic, old-fashioned manner. And it was as he sat there on the bench, beginning his day, that I saw another figure appear, a young man in black, tall and slender, with a pale face and hair shooting out in 20 directions, who walked up to the organillero and held out a coin. I assumed it was a coin. All I saw was the glint of a small object transferred between hands, and continued on his way. The elderly man nodded in surprised gratitude. He was probably used to receiving alms when music was produced, not silence, and here, out of nowhere, first thing in the morning, had come this offering. Despite having to catch the school bus at 7:24, I followed the new person as he hurried down streets parallel to the ones I normally took, past mozos sweeping the streets before their employers awoke, and tramps curled up in the porticos of grand houses beginning to uncurl. But once he turned off into Puebla, my inner map cried out, and I swerved around and retraced my steps in a hurry, arriving just